yesterday I was at a restaurant. This is like this amazing Mexican restaurant. It got built up so high. We drove like 30 minutes to get there. We get there and the lady's like, it's an hour wait. We were so hungry. And she has this little iPad app and she asked me for my name and my phone number and how many people are in my party. And then she asked me for my phone number again. And then she asked it for a third time. And I'm like, come on, people. Why are people designing software better? Then the day before yesterday, I was getting in an elevator and another person, and it's probably someone in this room, got into the elevator and they got bowled over by the door. Like it was like a really hard hit. And I mean, that's a system failure. Like people designed that elevator door to close too hard and too fast. So the design decisions that we make impact customers. So during this week, I've been thinking like, why am I in software design? As a product manager, I still do software design. And I keep thinking about, why am I doing this? Do you guys think about why you're doing this job? Well, I do it because I want to make an impact on the world. And the question is that an impact that's painful, like, or is it an impact that's like, wow, this is a delightful user experience? Which one do you want to have? Do you want to be a relevant architect who customers keep begging, like, please pick Noah to design my system because he always figures out how to do it correctly? Or do you want to be the ivory tower architect who everyone whispers about? Oh my gosh, the new design came out, it's so stupid. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking. The person who everyone tries to ignore and avoid. The person who designed that stupid iPad app that poor lady was struggling with. Which one? You have to make the choice today. Which one are you going to be? Today I'm going to give you guys a technique, one technique, this is only a 30-minute session, that you can take back on Monday and use to make your designs more relevant so that customers beg for Noah's design instead of hoping that Noah forgets to email it out. So that's what we're doing today. So our course objectives are to teach you about design thinking and contextual design and how it can apply to software. I have to quote Michael Keeling. He actually is the inspiration for this speech. He's written a new book and he asked me to write a little blurb for it. And in that blurb, I wrote about customer experience architecture very concisely. And I was like, this should be my speech for SATURN this year. So we're dealing with wicked problems that don't have really clear answers. Whatever we can do to reduce the unknown and help us develop better systems, we need to do it. I think after all the speeches, and especially this morning's speech, we just have to try different things and try to reduce the unknown and make better designs. So I'm going to give you a technique that will help you do that, guaranteed. So what kind of context? Where it's system level, enterprise architecture, systems, interfaces, all of these things can be influenced by the technique today. People have gone over this today, or the last few days. We have to make design decisions before we know all the information, and it's really difficult. All right, design thinking. When our customers are using their software, what are they trying to do? This is the thing that I think we always forget, because we're like, oh, this is a new shiny toy, this new microservice, or we're going to build something in the cloud. We're all excited about it, but the customer is just trying to do something. That lady at the Mexican restaurant was trying to just get my phone number so she could text me when the table was ready. She's trying to do a job. And when we're designing software, if we don't really understand the context of how that software will be used, we can end up with really bad software. So I have a million stories that I could share with you today. I was trying to think of like, what's the best one? So last year I worked on developer experience. I was developing a CI/CD pipeline for our Predix product, and I would sit with developers and watch them check in their code and see if there's errors, and they had so many tools. I was baffled by how many tools the average developer uses nowadays. So I really tried to make sure my CI/CD pipeline tool would give them feedback in a way that helped them be successful and not have another tool to go to. I mean, do you ever think about your software and how you can maybe embed it in the current processes that your customer is already doing instead of giving them yet another screen they have to go to and deal with? So this is a very important part. So one thing that happened to me when I was at Verizon was I sat with this sales guy, and he was closing like a big customer order. He had this massive order form that he had to fill out. And he spent the entire day, I sat with him for the whole day as he tried to fill in this order form. Instead of being out with customers and selling, he was struggling to try to fill in this order form. And I just think about the architects who built that system and how they completely didn't understand what he was trying to do. So any questions at this point? Internal, external? So I, at Verizon, build software for internal people, for our call centers, for our techs, for our sales teams. And at GE, I'm developing software for external people to use. Now, both of these people have a lot of requirements. Sometimes it's actually really hard to get to an external customer, but if you can do it, that would be really helpful. So you said, I think it was Noah, right? That you said you had external customers. Are you able to get to them to sit with them?
Usually it's easier to get to the external customers
really?
Than the people that have the mortgage. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So in research for my CAT pipeline, I actually went out to external art, entertainment arts, EA, and sat with an architect who was building their CI/CD pipeline, and sat with him and watched him build his Jenkins pipeline just to see all the different steps that he was doing. So sometimes you can actually go to another company or another kind of user that's doing something similar to what you're doing to try to find them. So today we're going to be doing an exercise, and we're going to be doing this SATURN exercise. But before I go to that, this is... Okay, yeah, so let me explain this form. So everyone should have this form. So once you find your customer, and I'm not going to dwell a lot on that because I'm hoping everyone will be able to find a customer that they can sit with. This is really critical. And you're probably thinking like, oh, this is not something that I really need to do. So raise your hand if you believe that you do not have a customer that is impacted by your software. Anybody? Wow, okay, good. You guys are the right audience. So this is actually very tough. I ran this program at Verizon, and I made a form that was similar to this, and I had a program where developers could book appointments with real users and sit with them and fill out this form. And the findings were really incredibly powerful. They would come back with so much empathy for their users. So does everyone have one of these forms? So what this form is all about is trying to understand what the user is doing when they do their job. Now, this is great for existing software, and it's also really, really good when you're building a new system that doesn't have software yet. Maybe they have an old software that they're using, or it's a manual task. So this is really, you can use this for existing or new systems, and it helps you really understand what's going on. So what you want to do is sit with a real user in their work environment. Don't go and bring them in a conference room. As soon as you get them into a conference room, they're going to change their way they move, the way they think, the way they act. You have to have them in their contextual work environment. So this is really, really important. When I sat with developers, I would sit with them at their cube and watch them do their job. So you cannot take them somewhere else. So pick a customer and actually pick several. Pick an expert and pick a novice and somewhere in between, because you want to have a wide range. When I sat with the EA architect, he was an expert on Jenkins. I sat with other developers. They didn't even know what was going on behind the scenes. So sit with several. So the first important thing is to know how they need, what triggers them to do the task. This you'll find out this is very interesting. How do they know they need to do the task? You'll find out it's all kinds of weird things, like someone yells at them from down the hall, they get a call, they just woke up and felt like doing it that day. It's really an interesting question, And then how do they know the task is complete? All right? So those are the really two important things. Another thing that I wasn't able to like put on this paper is that you want to ask why. Whenever they get frustrated with something that they're doing, say like, oh, why? Or what are you trying to do? I've seen salespeople, like the one guy was calling over the wall to his coworker to try to get the format of an ID that he had to type in. And the thing didn't say on the screen like how to type it in. So he kept saying like, hey, what's the format? And the guy kept trying different formats. So I'm like, what are you trying to do? Like, there's no explanation of how this code should be typed in. So asking why they're doing it or what they're trying to do at certain points can really help you uncover interesting things that you had never realized. Okay, so what you want to do here is write down the steps. So you want to write the actor. So sometimes the system gives them something, so that's what the actor would be. And sometimes they're doing it, or they're calling over the wall to their coworker, right? You want to write down like Joe or Bob from across the cube wall is calling over to tell the format now, and then you tell the step of what they're doing. All right, so any questions on the interview form? Once you've identified your customer, you use this and sit with them, and definitely sit with several. All right, we're going to do an exercise today where you guys are going to interview each other. So we're going to just get into groups of 2. Okay, so groups of 2, because this room is not set up in a very easy way, and we can't ruin the room because other people are going to use it right after us. So get into groups of 2, like you guys could sit together maybe, and then interview the other person for this app. You're going to design this app. So let me just read it. So this app is going to make it easy for you to connect with people at Saturn. The user story. I enjoy talking to someone, and I ask if I can add them to my network. They say yes and not no. That's a good sign. You take out your cell phone and open the app and enter their name. And then after, now I'm connected with this person on all my social networks, and I get a list of all the people I met after the conference. So that's like the basic app that you are going to be interviewing your neighbor about. So one of you is going to be the architect, and one of you is going to be the customer. And you're going to be doing this interview to see what's the normal process of doing this. Okay? If we didn't have this app today, how do you add someone to your network? That's the exercise. I see some questions. You have a question? Okay, so today it's a manual process. Whatever that is, I want you guys to discover it. So let's get everyone into teams. And it's probably easier just to sit next to someone. Okay, guys, we're going to stop there. I hope that you've realized there's a lot of steps that you probably hadn't even realized. Right? This is just a simple thing that you guys have probably done like 5 times already this week, I hope, anyways. Okay, now what I want you to do is to take a few minutes. I don't know how the timing, because we're running out of time, but I want you to take a few minutes to discuss how can you use this back, or actually, we're just going to skip that one. How can you use this technique on Monday morning? Like, how can you apply it right away? Okay? So take 2 minutes to discuss with your partner, how can you go back and apply this? Everyone, it's been 2 minutes. So now we're gonna go to the next part. I should just bring this with me, which is final group discussion. So we have about 6 minutes left. I want you guys to share what you discussed with your team member. How can you apply this back in the office? How can you make your software more relevant so that you don't become that ivory tower person? So anyone want to share first some of their discoveries? Yes.
One of the big chunks of steps was the security. One of the big chunks of step was the security approval. Got to get an email because he hadn't logged in to LinkedIn from here. So there's a whole sequence of steps to get that, go through that, which, security versus convenience is always a problem. But
that is very interesting. Awesome, thank you. Who else has something interesting that they wouldn't have expected, like a surprise? Yes, Noah.
So in our particular case, our customer didn't want
automatic connection to any social media. They wanted to be able to approve or deny prior based on whatever data was emailed to them.
That's very interesting. See, you think that you're designing something that customers want. Like, I kind of assumed, like, see, this is what people want. You guys are discovering a lot of interesting things. I want to hear from Tony in the back. This was an interesting, my rebellious group back here has a very interesting case.
We know too much, I think. So we think we know too much. Yeah, so my initial reaction was, whoa, I'm not sure I want to be connected that quickly over that many networks that I don't necessarily know that much about. I have a minimal kind of social media presence. I don't have one of these big outgoing presences because I don't like a lot of the terms and conditions that these services or applications have. And I kind of thought I was in the minority, but maybe not. I thought I was in like a super minority. I think about security and privacy, and not just for my information, but if I'm in a social network and I'm connected to a bunch of other people, I have information about them that I might be giving, to third parties via this app that, they're not giving me permission to distribute their information. And I might be doing that. So I kind of resist a lot of that stuff. So I want kind of a narrow connection that's well controlled and has a high security and privacy capability.
This is the amazing things that you find out when you talk to your real customer. Okay, anyone else have any interesting things? We've heard security a few times. How about we're here from the man in the traveler's shirt?
So he got notified when I sent him a request for LinkedIn. And instead of it popping up in his notification section, which is what we thought would be the result, it was actually in his network section. So he went to the wrong spot in LinkedIn first to try and accept the request. So even they fall victim to this, basically.
Wow. That is very interesting. Okay, any other interesting... Also, I want to hear how you can apply this back in the office. Like, what can you do? How can you apply this? So a lot of really interesting surprises. How about the USSA, Mike, over here?
I'm going to echo what I heard over there. I'm the security architect for the company, so I have a very thin presence. Something that we do that works, I do this 100% all day. I'm embedded with my business as an architect.
That's awesome.
And I watch the problems that they experience. They even come to me with help on things like cases and stuff.
Nice.
I know their business very well, so I can translate to requirements and designs for the developers.
That's wonderful.
So
Everyone,
I know I was doing that.
woo, good job. We all have to do that. We have to really be embedded with our teams. All right, anyone else? How can you apply this on Monday morning? What are you going to go back and do differently? Okay, back over. Denny.
And my tester is sitting over here in the corner, and so I got to talk with him and find out exactly what it is that he needs to figure out, and vice versa. What's he doing to test my software, and vice versa. Because we got to work together to make sure that works.
I think you brought up a really good point. So sometimes you're building something that's used internally and it maybe is being used by a developer. Like last year I worked on developer experience all year. That's not your average user. But there's actually a whole podcast on developer experience. And if you develop something the wrong way, developers will hate you so much. So actually, it's really interesting when you're building something for another internal customer, and even if they're a tester, I mean, that's a valid user, and trying to understand what they're trying to do it's probably, have you been interviewed for your experience yet? Before? Ever? See? This is a special moment, guys. Special moment. All right. Anyone else, how can you apply this back at work?
What comes to my mind is that as an architect, you think you're pretty smart.
Yeah.
And you think you understand what your customer needs, so you don't even bother asking him. And I think that probably is the big lesson for this discussion, is don't assume that you understand your customer. Go talk to them, find out what they do, sit next to them like you said, and see what they really do.
Yes. Yes. Empathy is probably the thing I want you guys to take away from this the most. So we have one more second. These are some resources. These are really good books. Contextual design is actually extraordinarily boring book, but it has a lot of details. Don't just go to read it like page end to end, but you can go in there for a lot of methods of picking customers. They have a lot more forms. What you can do after you do the interviews is put up all the results on a wall, and then you and your team can go through and like find the big findings, like all these security pieces. How about the people who don't want to use social media? And then you start building out like some results, and then you can turn that into an architecture. So I actually learned about this in deciding what to design from the SEI, or actually from Carnegie Mellon. And then Change by Design is a big, awesome book that you guys definitely need to read. And if you want to read any of my books, you know, go ahead. They're all on Amazon. And if you want to tweet me or blog me or whatever is the thing that's, you know, acceptable to anyone in this room, please go ahead and do that. So thank you, everyone. And I will turn it back to our host today.
Thank you very much, Bett.